Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Jen Yeager, and I am the Senior Associate Director for Constituency Engagement at the School of Education, which encompasses alumni relations programs and annual giving and fundraising at the school, because I know that title is kind of a different one. And I welcome you all. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to especially thank our fantastic panel of alumni for being here to share their experiences and their wonderful backgrounds and in terms of starting and running different types of other nonprofits or businesses of their own. And I'd like to introduce Jenny Edinger, who's our Career Services and Disabilities Counselor here at the School of Education. And I want to thank you all. And I'd also like to say there is a survey, if everyone will be willing to fill out the survey for us. We'd love to hear about your experiences as well as other ideas of different other things you'd like to see or hear from the School of Education. So thank you all for being here.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for coming out on this early spring, finally spring morning. So we're excited to offer this program today for as part of Career Services and Student Affairs. I would thank you again to the panelists and the distinguished alumni for being here. And another distinguished alumni that I would like to introduce and have the privilege of introducing this morning, Mary Summers, who will be our moderator today. And she is currently the Associate Director of Admissions at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, where she serves as lead recruiter for several full-time and part-time MBA and MS programs. She is also a career coach at Summers and Associates, LLC, and where she provides career counseling to adults in career transition. Previously, Mary served as admissions officer and academic advisor at the Carey Business School and faculty associate here at the School of Education. Mary graduated from the clinical community counseling program here at Johns Hopkins. She holds a BA in psychology from Hiram College and an MS from here at Johns Hopkins School of Education. And please help me welcome Mary Summers.
Hi everyone. I have to say I'm absolutely honored, humbled, thrilled to be here today, given who the folks are that are going to be telling you about the wonderful opportunities of starting your own businesses as well as the challenges. We're going to be telling you the truth, right? Talking about all of it. But it's a thrill to be here. So proud to be an alumna of the School of Education. I was a student way back when it was continuing studies, and then became School of Professional Studies of Business and Education, and then with the split between business and education. I'm not sure I would be admitted now if I were to apply to the school because so many wonderful things have happened. What today is about is our remarkable panelists talking about what they did to launch their own business, what they thought about that process, because it's a scary thought. I mean, it's a scary thought to launch that, but at some point you decide you have to do it. So I want to talk about that intersection, when you knew you had an idea and said, I got to do it, the nuts and bolts, what it was to get your business launched, who the folks are that are supporting you, just really all those kinds of questions to help us really understand about this great opportunity. So what I'd like to do, though, and our panelists have asked this, before I even introduce them, we want to know who's here. So if you would just tell us your name, the program you're in, if you're thinking about starting a business, what is it that you'd like to do? I'll remind you of all of these. And then what you'd like to get out of today's session. So, tell us who you are, your program, why you're here today, and if you're thinking of starting a business.
Okay. So I'm Samaya Olajide, and I'm in the school counseling program, and I'm almost finished. After the semester, I only have the internship, and what I want to get out of today is just basically information to help me with the things that Mary was saying, because I have a business, and mentally transitioning to consider myself a business person, and also like really just getting it going is, I think, like a psychological challenge. even though I've done thousands of hours of work, but just so that like mental transition. And then also at the end, I have some more specific questions that I'll have.
So, yeah, just who you are, program, and like.
I'm Shazan, just a public provider.
You know, it's so-
We just know what the plan has to say, and
Well, you've helped your friends start an education scholarship fund for students in a developing country in Sri Lanka. And I work with Teach for America, and I'm now a Montessori teacher in Washington. I work with a private program that's very well established. And this experience has just made me think about a lot of innovations that are needed, both within the Montessori world, but also for Montessori public education. So I'm just here for ideas. I have nothing concrete started yet.
I should say, Shazan, thank you for coming today. Actually, Jennifer launched her business with her husband, so she can talk about that more specifically.
That's wonderful, and you need the support of each other.
Hello, my name is Shannon Valera. I graduated with my master's in 2012. I don't have my own business. I've been home with my children for the last couple of years, but my youngest is starting preschool in the fall, and so that kind of clears me up to start, getting back into what I would like to do. So my mother, she's actually a science teacher. She teaches middle school science, and we've been talking about starting a program that offers extra help for children in science and math. And I just wanted to get as much information as I can. My husband started his own business a few years ago. It's engineering though, but it would be nice to see other people's perspective and other sides of that, especially related to education.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Charles, and I'm just here to support my daughter. She's one start her own business. I let her tell you.
Okay, very good. And it takes a village.
Yes, my name is Candace. You can call me Candy. Just started last year here in the Urban Ed program, looking to start a nonprofit that offers wraparound holistic services to Baltimore City students, primarily ages 16 to 22. And my mom is here because she's going to catch everything that I don't get today. And, hopefully she will assist me with this nonprofit. So we decided to bring her home.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jay Richard Perkins. I'm a Baltimore City school teacher. I've been an administrator, some other things in the school system there, 21 years now. And I've seen the changes that the school system has gone through in terms of public education, school reform, and all those issues. So I decided that I've had this burning desire to do something to interject my beliefs and my thoughts into that regarding the, it's known as the school to prison pipeline. So I have an idea that I want to try to develop, and that's what I'm doing.
Robert Christian. I graduated from the Public Safety Leadership Program in 2009. Currently work as a captain for the Indianapolis Fire Department. I don't have a business per se, but I have looked at possibly starting a medical education for public, a nonprofit, targeted mostly towards like CPR or first aid. And I'm also approaching the point where I can actually retire and move on to something else. So if I'm looking for ideas and how to but I've used some of my experience and what I've gained from the fire service to move into other avenues.
Timing is so much a part of this, right? So as you think about retiring and something like the fire department, you can use this time to start launching that. Great.
Good morning. My name is Belinda Ryan. I'm a graduate of Hopkins. I have my master's degree in education. I came to the program out of great need. I had a special needs son, I still do. And I said, God never gave me a manual to deal with him. So I studied behavioral psychology, and then I also did a second degree in psychology. I landed up working many, many years in the nonprofit world. I was an executive director of 3 different nonprofits, also ran a private foundation for 14 years. and then did some work with Operation Smile overseas work, which was very, very rewarding. I started a few years ago because I needed to take care of my elderly father. So I started an LLC to take care, to go into nonprofits and evaluate them, and especially in the area of development, because I enjoy development work. But now I've taken a new twist, and I completed 5 certifications in corporate life and life coaching, and I'm launching this new business, and my goal is really to help people in transitions, but also to integrate the nonprofit world with my coaching, because there are so many people in transition who need to be taking their skills and helping nonprofits. So that's really what I believe my calling is now, and I'm trying to get that all launched, like with a website, and so I have a lot of questions about all of that. But I feel so blessed because of the Hopkins program that really gave me this strong background, which has helped me tremendously throughout my career. And nonprofit work is wonderful. So you don't get paid much, but it's wonderful.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kohler, and I'm a communications person that got a Master's of Arts in Teaching here, secondary English in '02. I have 2 businesses, one that at some point the business school and the School of International Studies was giving me some clients for academic editing and that sort of thing. That I haven't stayed vigilant on, getting clients and so forth. My current passion, though, comes from when I was at Salisbury State University and learned bonsai before I ever came to Hopkins in '96. And it's been a real passion, and I started a business a year ago that's been growing well, applying that to landscape ornamental trees. And it's been doing very well the beginning of this season because I also started a club at Anne Arundel Community College, and I think that publicity kind of pulled the trigger for some clients I approached last season.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Keisha Brett. I just started in the Master's Mental Health Counseling program. My background is in nonprofit fundraising. I've served as a consulting the firm, going around to nonprofits, helping them raise money for endowment and capital projects. So I'm here today just to try to figure out how I can marry the two. It's possibly a consulting business, something like that.
I know you just sat down, but we're doing introductions now. Welcome. If you could just tell us who you are, you're one of our students in the Alumni program, and what you're hoping to gain from attending today.
Sure. I'm Sade Shipman, and I'm a graduate of the Master's in Secondary Teaching English, and this was about 2 or 3 years ago. I'm currently a teacher at the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women. I have a couple of leadership roles at the school, and I'm kind of just interested in learning about how I can better support the parents of the students that are at the school, and I know that there are many business opportunities with that.
So, good morning. Good morning. Atira Griffin, also a recent graduate of the Master's in Education. So I have my Master's in Secondary Education from Johns Hopkins University. I'm currently Dean of Students at the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women. And I too am looking for more ways to implement some better programming in the educational system that helps not only support the parents, but help them understand parenting and their role in raising young children and helping them to become great citizens in our society. So definitely wanting to understand how to go about starting my own nonprofit eventually that will help the demographic of single mothers, because our school is an all-girls school, working with their daughters to help them go through society and be successful.
I'm Chad Newell. I do development and alumni relations for the Johns Hopkins School of Education. So I work closely with Jen.
Brett Probst, chauffeur and head cheerleader on your website.
Thank you for coming today. Wow. I mean, with our whenever I do events like this, I'm always just as impressed by folks who come who say they want to learn, because think about the things that you've already done and what you're already contributing. So I'm really looking forward to the Q&A, because we're really engaging kind of what you're thinking and what you're doing that's working as well. So delighted that we're all here. What I want to do, and I know you've got these entire bios, and I'm certainly not going to read the whole thing, but I've just highlighted a couple things. And don't ask me what I underlined and why I underlined what I did. I don't know. But I just want to pull out some key points of your backgrounds, and then we'll just kind of jump into the conversation. So on my very far left is Shelley Blake-Pock. He is the co-founder and CEO for an estuary company that provides accessible, sustained, and research-based professional development that focuses on student academic and achievement K-12 and higher education. You'll find Shelley on the web all the time. He's written some very influential blogs. His current blog is an estuary. Definitely encourage you to take a look at that. Background, he studied classical civilizations at Harvard and is a grad of our MS in Education with the 2005 graduation date. To Shelley's right is Jess Gardner, who's the founder of Alumni and CEO. Alumni is this resource planning software platform for K-12 schools and districts that empowers educators to allocate resources to support those students. It's had some wonderful growth, accepted into Accelerate Baltimore, and maybe Jess, you can talk about that a little bit. I think that's going to be quite interesting to know about. She is a Teach for America grad. She's taught schools around the world and has been named one of the Baltimore Women to Watch. Grad at the University of Penn, where she earned a bachelor's in political science, and is an MAT grad from our School of Education. Welcome. Immediately to Jess's right is Tammy Ginsberg, who's a grad of our Clinical Community Counseling Program, 2009 grad, and you can read from her bio that she was a very significant career changer. So it'll be fun to kind of talk about that transition, how you decided that counseling was kind of the next step for you. She, as you can see, she was a program manager at Discovery Communications. And her undergraduate degree is linked with her work at Discovery. She earned a bachelor's in radio, television, and film, and she's a 2009 grad of our master's in counseling. And Joe Twining, is it Twining or Twining? Twining. Apologize. Joe Twining is the executive director at Rose of Sharon Equestrian School and founder. That's a nonprofit that works with individuals with disabilities to provide hypnotherapy and stable management skills. As the exec director, she really helps folks at all levels of care, and she worked as a special educator in Baltimore County Public Schools. She was also a freelance journalist with the Virginia Pilot and Ledger. She earned her master's degree from Hopkins in special ed, working with mild to moderate disabilities. And then on my very immediate left is Jennifer Probst. She is a graduate of our Abell program. She earned an MS in Community Development. She is a retired fire rescue captain from Montgomery County Public Schools. She worked 2 decades in the service, and she held a number of different positions, including public communications. Recently, with her husband, she founded FJP Associates, which is an international consulting business, and they provide instruction and program development for public safety officials worldwide. She is a graduate of the University of Maryland as well, with a BS in Physical Sciences, and as I said, the Johns Hopkins School of Education with an MS in Management and a certificate in Fire and Executive Leadership. So welcome all. Thank you for being here again this morning. And let's really just launch into some of the questions that we have. I'd like to start with a discussion, and maybe Shelley, we'll start with you and kind of move forward, but then we'll kind of really open it up. But oftentimes people start a business because they think there's a need, and that's what so many of you have said. You see there's a tremendous need. Can you talk about what really inspired you to start your business? What did you see that needed to be done?
Sure. First, I just want to say thanks for having us all here this morning. A nice morning was prepared for us. My entire professional life has revolved around teachers. I was a classroom teacher for 8 years, and then working here with Baltimore City Public School teachers and TFA corps members for about 4 years at Hopkins. One of the things that I found was that there's an enormous amount of technology, an enormous amount of education technology that's been sort of pushed into the schools, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. But there's relatively little support for teachers in really understanding how to integrate and implement those technologies in ways that go beyond just the ordinary, to implement those things in ways that are extraordinary and produce the kinds of student outcomes that we want. So last April, myself and a couple teachers in Baltimore and a few technologists started a new company called An Estuary, where we build social platforms to serve exactly the purpose of helping teachers to navigate together with one another the waters of new technology, new education programs, new implementation of these programs. And we do so at scale across the country. The one thing that I think is really important when you think about where your idea comes from is to really start with yourself, your own experience, and no idea is too small. In fact, it's the ideas that seem small at first, which often grow into the greatest businesses.
Thanks, Mary and Jen, for preparing the day, and Jess. So one of my more memorable experiences as a first-year teacher was the horrifying knowledge at 6 a.m. one October morning when I learned that we were out of paper for the rest of the year. And I was like, man, I knew that some of these urban schools were under-resourced, but this is October. We got a long ways to go here, and that was a lot of trips to Staples I put in that year. I racked up a lot of rewards points. And I was like, is this normal? And I'm looking around at my friends, and one of my friends is like, we don't even have toilet paper, forget writing paper. And then I'm looking at other schools who have like one-to-one iPad programs, they got ponies coming to the school, they're going to the opera. I'm like, are we working in the same district here? And we were, which was just staggering to me, because we've got a system where we have the exact same student population, the exact same funding model, the exact same central leadership, and some of us are on the BYOTP program, and some of us are like, making videos based on our trip to the opera. And clearly, those are different educational experiences, and those are different teaching experiences. I mean, which school do you want to work at? And I kept asking why? How could this happen? And Baltimore is a decentralized funding school, which means that principals have a great autonomy over budgeting their schools, which in theory is amazing if you're at the school where you're going to the opera. Not if you're at the school where if you forgot toilet paper, it's going to be a long day. And I thought, okay, so this is a resource allocation problem. And then, I'm going home and I'm logging onto mint.com, seeing like, oh, my Starbucks spending was really high this month, right? And I have this like beautiful display of every penny I spend and like recommendations on what I can do to improve my financial situation. And I thought, this technology might be put to better use to the people running $1 million or $1 billion education organizations. It seemed like no one was doing that. And it bothered me that no one was doing that, because in the meantime, our kids are the ones bearing the burden of the consequences of those administrative inefficiencies. And I really had no interest in starting a business. It just seemed way beyond the scope of my abilities or experience. But I really wanted to be able to sleep at night again. So finally, and perhaps this was the exhaustion talking, I was like, I'm just going to do it. just gonna figure it out. And if I have a safety net of a job, I'm gonna chicken out. It's gonna be too easy. So I went in and I quit my job. I said, well, you better figure it out now, because there's no more paychecks coming after next week. And that was about a year ago. And since then, we've raised $800,000 in startup capital, and we've grown our team to about 8 people at this point, and we're working on scaling our product for district use right now. So,
Tell us about the title Value.
yeah, so I thought this would be abundantly obvious to everyone, and it's obvious to no one. The allo comes from allocation, and the view sounds like view, so it's like looking at your allocations, but it also stands for visual user experience, because I believe this is inherently a design problem, because we have the data. We've got data for days, but nobody knows how to use it, and nobody can see it or access it or make any sense of it. So it's all about the user experience and the design for us.
Well, for me, I'm a licensed therapist, so to kind of, it's me in that vein. But one of the reasons that I went into this field is I really saw that there was a huge need for young adults and adolescents, and particularly girls, boys too, but and what I found is that a big part of what we're missing in our schools, in our education systems, even in a lot of therapy offices, is that there's a mind-body-spirit connection. It's not all in the mind, it's not, everything is connected. I have a stomach ache, there's probably something going on in my mind. If, my spirit isn't feeling like it's here, then there's probably something else going on, either mentally or physically. So I really wanted to bring that piece into personal and private therapy. And so the only way I could do that, I worked in an agency for a while, so you sort of have to do that to get hours to become completely licensed, is I thought, once I go off on my own, I can do what I want, which was this piece of it. So, thanks. So now in private practice, I've been in private practice for about 1.5 years now, and we can talk more about how that starts later. But the need that I saw really was to get that message out to parents, as well as, because if you're going to work with somebody's child, you kind of have to go through the parents. And so what I have found is that in working with, as long as we're talking about mind, body, spirit, you also have to talk about families. When a child has an issue, it's not just the child, it's the unit, it's the family. And the other half of that being technology, and what a huge, huge role that has played in the mental health of kids today. That it has really allowed kids to be even meaner than they were before, and even more hurtful than they were. Things they would never say face to face, they'll say on social media. Social media has created sites where it's there for 10 seconds and it's gone. You can post something and it's anonymous, and it's just become this big, ugly thing that kids get very, very, very into and think that their whole life is about. So my job, I think, is to, number one, empower children, empower them to realize that they are in control of their lives, that we're all connected and nobody can tell them how to feel or what to do, or they can really feel their strength in this kind of tricky world. And to work with the families. I found it's amazing how many families just don't understand that they need to shut the TV down, that they need to shut the computers down, that they need to shut it down and talk, God forbid, actually have a face-to-face conversation, not text upstairs to downstairs, what do you want for dinner, but actually walk downstairs and say, what do you say we all sit around the table together and have a meal? Amazing, let's not have the TV on. So it's sort of just getting back to that, and getting back to communicating and understanding that everything is connected. So that's kind of where, while I work with adolescents and young adults, I work with families, couples, adults, sort of whoever is open to this kind of thinking. And
You know what's so fascinating about that? I think about your background coming from Discovery, which is about getting programming out. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that Discovery does. Arguably, it's fabulous things. But what you're suggesting is that folks, let's step away from those.
Absolutely. Let's turn it off.
Yes.
I'm so inspired and excited by everything that I'm hearing, both from the audience and the panel. I sort of forget my own story. And so very simply, I had a tough adolescence for a variety of reasons. And I believe that horses saved my life. And throughout all the things that I've done since then, I always wanted to bring what they were able to do for me. Not in the typical sense of riding and showing and competition and all, and the elitist type, having horses in your life, but just how they saved my life. I believe that they could save others.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming out. I come from a little bit different background than all of these professional educators with my business in the fire service. Surviving the public safety leadership program here at Johns Hopkins. And for those of you who are doing your schoolwork right now, it will get better. Believe me, I don't even know how I wrote those programs. I was working shift work and 60 hours a week and going to classes and being a mom. But it will get better. But the foundation through Johns Hopkins and my experiences with Montgomery County Fire Department with the different positions that I held all kind of came back to teaching. As a parent, you do a lot of teaching. As an officer, you do teaching. Part of the philosophy in the fire service is that you train the people underneath you to replace you, because it's a progression, and whether we want to know it or not, we're only here for a short time, and then it's our job to move on and then pass those skills on. I think that doing a skills inventory, I am very impressed by the skills that I've already heard from everybody in the room, and doing a skills inventory, just phenomenal. You have skills that you haven't even realized yet, and just making it through life, you have a certain skill set. As far as identifying a need, that was kind of thrust upon us. My husband and I were both going through the retirement process together, me through a disability. One of the things with the fire service is the goal is to walk out upright. I'm still walking upright, but I got a little hitch in my get up every once in a while in the mornings. But with our skill set, we also were very affected by 9/11 and the current world climate. And it affects you in more ways than you understand. We're all in our small world, we're trying to make it through the day. But there are still a lot of, I'm not going to say bad things, I'm not going to do the fear mongering, but there's a lot of stuff going on out there in the world. So the opportunity to work with this program, we've had some specialized training, and some of that is in teaching, some of that is in communication, some of that is in safety, and we've had the opportunity to teach some what I call CAN programs for the State Department. In the past, it's been nearly 2 years now. My husband was still doing it while he was working on shift, but 2 years that the two of us have worked together and become familiar. He wrote down a list of countries because they all run together. But he has been traveling and teaching, and in the meantime, as I'm home proofreading the newspaper saying, oh, they made another mistake here, and boy, they lost the meaning here, and we could communicate this in a more succinct manner. He said, you know what, we need to do our own programs. We can do this, we can write these programs. Whenever you go to a program and you say, wait a minute, I could have done that. I could have done that better. Well, that's where we are. So we've traveled to, the latest trip was to Mauritania, a month in Ethiopia, Nigeria. Do not recommend that for the travel hit list. If you want to go for vacation, don't go to Nigeria. However, the people that we have encountered are all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to make the world a better and a safer place, and it's very inspirational. Kenya, Colombia, Georgia, the country, not the state, and we've gotten much better at the globe, let me tell you. And, the world geography in a lot of these countries have also changed names since I went through geography. And we've also hosted locally down in Washington, we had a group from Burundi and Turkmenistan. The Turkmenistanis, we even did a a party for them down at the Annapolis area, crab feast, and just being able to share with other people and see that we are all connected, just very, very powerful. And so that's our need we're trying to fill. Thank you.
So, Jess, you talked about this, but the question I want to ask is the process of deciding to start your business. So, kind of that first thought, there's a need, I can do that better, this can really help people in a huge way. And then those kind of first thoughts, talk about how you then decided to launch your business and how long that took. Maybe, so if you can start.
We are still in the process of launching. As you know, everything it's a process. It takes some time. Some of us don't necessarily quit our job and just say, hey, we're going for it, like Jess said. We had, my husband and I, we had a sense of timing as far as that goes, but I think that your timing and the way to launch is going to be based really on your specific business and also on your needs. When you do a needs assessment and then you do a skills assessment, okay, what is it that I know? Where do I need to beef up? For example, we've done some research. I mean, the internet is just, I mean, it's horrible in some ways, and it is just a gift. I just took an accounting class because I needed a primer. I needed a refresher. Like, oh, I remember this, but okay, we need to be compliant. So as far as launching, you just have to, sometimes you do have to just put your foot out there. And I think one of the most valuable things is networking. You know, you see so many people, you see the jobs out there advertised, and you see so many people in their resumes, but until you actually start talking to people, you don't know what's going on and what's going on down in the grassroots area. So I just think that the networking is just essential, and face-to-face. I know that we have to connect through the social media aspects at first, but I think that the face-to-face has been essential for us. That's how we got started. We wrote, my husband wrote a reference letter for one fellow, got him into the business. We've got a couple other people who are doing the same sort of thing, but out on their own in different directions, and then people called us and said, hey, we need your help. So, you know, one person helps the next.
Give yourself permission. I would say give yourself permission. You'll often see where they talk about creating a mission statement and your philosophy and what your values are. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to quit your job in order to do that. And you'll find that you're starting to believe in your business. Share it with a few intimate friends or relatives, and that's one way to begin without taking any big risks, and it grows from there.
Like Joan, I had a pretty rough adolescence myself and a lot of life experience. And so I think you kind of have to know what you want out of it for you before you are ready to put into it. So for me, coming back to Johns Hopkins to get my master's, probably isn't the right place to say this, but it was what I had to do to get what I wanted. And what I wanted was to be able to impart not so much the academia of counseling, but the spiritual connection to it. And so I needed, the academic background in order to do that, but I kind of knew that wasn't the area I was going into. But as far as launching your own business, it depends on where you are financially too, truthfully. I mean, for me, I'm fortunate enough that my husband has a good income as well, so it wasn't dependent upon me making a certain amount of money in a year for me to start my own business. So you really have to decide how much you need a certain income, and do you need to keep a job that you're in while you're launching your business? Is there somebody else that's part of your family that can help support? That is a piece of it. And I think once you know where you are financially, just go for it. You just have to say, it's that self-empowering thing of knowing. It's really easy for us all to look around at everybody else and say, well, I'm sure he can do it, and she can do it, and they can do it, but I can't do it. And to just know that, hey, whatever we really want, whatever we're the most passionate about, do it. So you just have to put yourself out there and do it.
I'll follow up and say, I would hear those stories and be like, well, that's great. I don't know what bank you robbed, but I got a month. Like, I was a teacher for a few years. It wasn't like I was stockpiling cash somewhere. I had just bought a house. That was where my cash went. And I remember I called my parents and I said, if I have like a secret trust fund that you have not told me about, this would be an excellent time to let me know. And they were like, sorry. And I remember I had this conversation. He was like, if you quit your job, how long are you going to last? And I was like, 30 days. And that was not what he wanted to hear. So let me tell you that as like education, nonprofit, counseling people, we tend to be way too generous. You have marketable skills. You have to get creative. It's not gonna be easy, but you can get creative. So my biggest fear was, I'm gonna lose my house. I just bought this house and I'm gonna lose my house. I have a mortgage, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I turned my house into a bed and breakfast. Started renting it out nightly. That covered all my house expenses. Airbnb.
Yep.
You got a couch, you got an income. There's one, right? Started teaching classes. But like I was an adjunct professor at Towson, started teaching online classes, could do it on my own time. I mean, the biggest thing for me was like, I can't be busy 9 to 5. I need to have a flexible schedule. So I started teaching classes that allowed me a flexible schedule. I got a camera, I started doing portrait sessions. You start charging for those. I started showing real estate listings. I started doing grant writing. I mean, you have skills. Can you write? Can you proofread? Can you take pictures? Can you just like be somewhere for a place? Can you clean? Like whatever. I mean, I worked, my poor accountant, I worked like 8 jobs last year. I was like, here you go. Here's all my little stubs and things. Good luck. But the good news is, when you're a business owner, you can write everything off. I had like 0 income last year on my tax return. Because it's like, everywhere you go, you're like, this tank of gas, this cup of coffee, this dinner. Like, it really is. They are all business expenses. We're recording this, right? But it's true. Like, you gotta be creative. And I was able to stretch that. Like, I got 30 days. I managed to last actually 9 months, and then finally my investors were like, you gotta stop working all these side jobs now. We now are invested in your company and we need you to make it succeed, so we now want you to take a salary. And when you're at a point where your stakeholders are like, it's more important for you to spend your full time and energy on this venture, then you're in a good place, right? Because then nobody's going to fault you from taking a salary, because they know that if you don't, you're going to be out there with 10 little side hustles, and that's time that could be spent on your business. And it's gradual. You need to figure out that gradual release of, you know, when is this becoming more sustainable that I can start spending, that it's then more valuable for me to spend my time here bringing in new clients, bringing in new business, networking, you know, raising capital, recruiting, whatever, than it is for you to be like scheduling portrait sessions on the weekend. But it's gradual, and you want to find a way, but you can do it. You can be creative. You're all smart people with lots of little side skills. You just got to stop giving it away for free.
I'm hastily writing notes. I think Jess hit on a lot of the things related to cash that are important. I'd like to sort of look at some of the other things related to the process of starting your business, beginning with the why, right? Not the why in terms of, I want to start a business, I want to be my own boss, but really, why? For me, it was really clear. I've got 3 kids in public school. That's why. I'm in a business that, if we are successful, we are going to change the nature of how teachers are empowered to really teach in schools. That's why I do what I do, because that is a direct correlation into the future of my kids all their friends, neighbors, grandparents, nephews. That to me is the core of it. Second is, in terms of process, the team. You cannot do this on your own. You can't do it. And you shouldn't. Find people who will go to bat for you, and find people who you can think of the worst possible situation you could possibly be in with a handful of people, because you will be in that situation with those people, and you have to look out for each other, and you have to keep your eye on your objective. Connecting. The single most important decision that we made in our first year as a business was in accepting an offer to join the Emerging Technologies Center at Johns Hopkins Eastern. Hands down, the most important thing that we did. That connection, that decision to go with an incubator based in Baltimore City for a business that we wanted to found in Baltimore City led directly to our first sources of capital. Hands down, find people who are passionate about what you want to do. They already have connections, they can help you. I wrote two more things. One, be smart about taking and making money. What do you want out of your business? What is the sort of end goal? Do you want your business to be a family-owned business that will last for generations? Do you want your business to be a public company that will build new technologies for the next 100 years? Do you want your business to be acquired by a big company and you put a whole lot of work into it for 3 or 4 years and then you get out and start something else? What is it that you want? What is your goal? What is your objective? And sort of the fifth on my 5 points of things to think about in terms of process is always go back to number one. Always go back to remember the why. Because if you are doing sort of the right thing, people are going to tell you you're doing the wrong thing. You're going to have people tell you have no idea what you're talking about. You're going to have people criticize the very values you hold dearest, often in public and often in ways that will break someone who's not fully committed to the why, fully committed to the vision. If you can be willing to face the worst, you'll be ready for the best.
Each one of you have talked about the reason for starting your business. And through personal experience, through just something that you're seeing out there. I just want to make a comment about what you said, Shelley, which is, I have 3 kids. And my heart just started pounding because when the way you said that made me realize that this is like life or death, right? Every single one of the things that you're doing is life or death. We have to make sure that we are protecting the people that we can uniquely help. And what's so remarkable about that is that this is hard, right? But you're talking about changing something that can drill down to be very simple, right? To help kids. And to your point, beginning with the end, beginning with the outcome, what do you want to see? And I would ask all of you, you've talked about this with your school, what do you want to see at the other end? What is it that the difference that you want to make? Please think about that. Spend a lot of time on that. Not so much that you might think about it for 10 years, but enough that you're clear enough that you know you have to do this, you don't have a choice. Because there's so much that needs to be done, and there's no one else that can do it as well as you. And I think just being reminding yourself of that, and not listening to that voice that says, anyone can do this. We don't, I think another thing is that not only do we undervalue ourselves, we think because we do something well, everyone should be able to do it, and it's not that hard. But what we do, I think, is the hardest stuff that people are asked to do every day. So we have to remember that we're doing stuff that no one else can do. So, thank you. I'm going to go back a little bit to kind of the nuts and bolts, if you'll indulge me, because we don't often have those kinds of conversations. We'll often talk about our mission, our purpose. We can get clear on that, but then how do I go from there? Shelley, Jess, you both talked about funding and incubators. Can you talk about that a little bit? And then also from each of you, how you kind of put the capital together to get started.
Sure, I can speak to the incubators. There are incubators throughout the state of Maryland. The ETC in Baltimore City, which Jess and I are both part of. There's an incubator at UMBC. There's an incubator at Hopkins for healthcare called Dream It. There are a number of incubators, and what they basically do is, if you have a little bit of upfront funding, go into the incubator, rent office space, and that can be co-working space where you just get a desk, or it can be an office that you can fit 20 people in. Rent space at deep discounts. And because you are associated with an incubator, there are opportunities through the state of Maryland to get funding. Sort of the pipeline in Baltimore City, and probably elsewhere as well, I can only speak to my experience, but has been get into the incubator and then look for funding programs you can apply through TEDCO, the Maryland Technology Economic Development Corporation, am I right? Okay. There is a technology commercialization fund. You can get up to $100,000 to try to bring your idea into a marketable format, so something you can start to sell. There are other funds available as well through TEDCO. I know Jess can probably speak about Accelerate, which is specifically a Baltimore program.
Yeah, it's important to understand the legal structure of your company, as well as, and this is why when Shelley was talking earlier about where you want to end up, what your answer to that question is will very much determine what sort of capital you have access to. If you are aiming to create a $1 billion corporation, or at least a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars that you plan to have acquired, then you can start raising capital with investors. If you want to create a services-based family organization, that's not the sort of thing that investors will be interested in the traditional sense. You may have a network of people who are interested in supporting your idea, who may be interested in becoming a partner in your organization, but your pathways to traditional forms of venture capital will look very different. But you do want to explore options like the Small Business Administration has loans and line of credits and funding options that are specific to small businesses. There are also organizations out there that may provide funding options based on your demographics. There are funds out there available for women-owned businesses or minority-owned businesses that you may have access to. So make sure that you do your research, because if you're looking to become a company that you want to do a couple $100,000 of revenue, and you go to an investor and ask them for $100,000, they're going to ask why you're wasting their time. And that's going to be a waste of your time as well. So make sure that you understand what type of business you're building and what types of capital are the most appropriate for that type of business. And of course, if you're a nonprofit, your funding structure looks completely different because you're going to be looking more at the grants, foundations, and private donor pool for funding, and that's also going to look very different. So before you really think about how much to raise, or if you need to raise, or what type of funding you're going to raise, make sure that you understand what your end game is, and that will help determine what types of funding are appropriate for you.
I do have a couple of comments coming from a different, we did not use any emerging technologies, although it sounds just fabulous, because forming a consulting practice as a home-based, like I said, I had some medical issues, so I was home-based. I'm just starting to get back out of the house again. So we did not have that situation going on. However, if I could make one recommendation, I'm going to tell you a short story afterwards, but one recommendation: get your financial house in order first. Don't, if you've got debts or situations that need to be resolved, get them under control first so that you're going to have enough to do. Whether you're jumping off, quitting your primary job and then jumping off, or whether you've got your primary job and you're doing this, starting as part-time and then transitioning over into full-time, of course. Get your financial house in order, and I understand life happens. It does happen. Personally, I almost kicked the bucket, so to speak, back in 2009. So knowing that, and I was also remarried that same year, life happens. We have the distinction. Does anyone remember the astronauts with those G-forces where you can see your eyeballs being pulled back and the whole thing? As far as finances, and life happens, along with I think we had crazy medical things going on. Fortunately, we had health insurance. So, make sure that your financial house, you've got health insurance, so that something should come up, you've got a little bit. Now, I'm speaking as a mother and a parent, and I've got other people that I had to support. But as far as the G-forces go, my husband and I have the distinction with 5 children between us. And a year ago fall, all 5 were in college at the same time. From the high school student who was doing the Jump Start program at age 18 to the college graduate teacher who was going to grad school. And I was facing a disability retirement, and he was facing a retirement at a specific date from the fire service. So life happens. So don't let those things scare you, though. Get your house in order, prepare, and then the other thing that we were talking about with your team, don't forget that you can barter some of your skills also. So if you have somebody in the family has an accounting background, somebody else in the family has a legal background, there's a fella down the street who used to be a lawyer or something. Now, these may not be professionals that you want to enlist full-time. However, they can certainly answer a few questions to you, and you want to develop that team, that whole village concept. Remember, you want these people to be cheerleading you, but also remember, you need somebody right next to you that's going to tell you the truth. Also, not just all cheerleaders, but somebody that's going to, and barter your services back and forth. Make friends with your neighbors and your colleagues, and those people who do have those hidden skills, they might not be using them at the forefront. Retired people, they love to talk. So use those people.
Thank you. I have one more question, and then we'll open it up to the floor. And you all answer this in different ways, so I'll ask it a couple ways. One, how are you marketing? How are you letting people know about what you do? And can you talk about, and we've talked about this a little bit, can you also talk about how you're building out your network and collaborating? So, Joan, do you want to start?
I'm a little bit of a cautionary tale because I'm a huge dreamer and I have a lot of skills. And that has gotten me to a place where I've built my nonprofit. It has a wonderful reputation. It's very small. It's a staff of 1.5. But that's not sustainable for the long haul. We just went through a capital campaign to build a state-of-the-art building. It took 6 years to do it. It's there without a capital campaign committee. I don't recommend that. But again, I'm a dreamer. I'm stubborn, I have a lot of skills, I'm smart, and if I couldn't find that village, I kept moving. Unfortunately, forward. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position because it's a farm, so I'm tied down to the farm pretty much 24/7 to network as much as I need to be able to. So, this is wonderful to hear all of this, but I would use that as a bit of a cautionary tale. Just because things keep falling in place, or just because you're able to fill in the gaps, look for that team, look for that village, and you need it. You need it. Even if you're very successful, you need it.
Thanks. You know what makes me think of the only farmers market that I go to all the time, which I love. They have all these farm-to-table events. You should collaborate with the farmers market.
Oh, I've got a
You've
thing.
done all that?
I've got a thing.
Oh, let us know.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Great.
But again, it takes more.
Yeah, of
people.
course. Yep.
So.
Tammy.
Well, the obvious ways, of course. Have a website, and there's all kinds of different providers that you can do. You don't have to hire somebody to do your website in the beginning. It's really not that hard to do if you use GoDaddy or one of the other services, and you can build it yourself, and I think it costs me maybe $5.99 a month, not a big deal. The other thing is, in the business that I'm in, we have Psychology Today, so we put our profiles up on Psychology Today, and people who are looking for a therapist often look for us that way. But also, I have found that I'm not really into, in the business that I'm in, there's all kinds of ACA and, big groups that you can join, and they promise the networking and all of that, but truthfully, it's not very local. And so, I actually more recently, what I joined was not local, but you also have to be careful. Find organizations, find like-minded people, find people who have similar objectives, similar ideas, because you can bounce it off of each other. And so I got involved with an association of energy psychology because I'm into more of the energy, mind, body, spirit. I got certified in Reiki, and I met people at that certification that are like-minded. I also happened to share office space with 2 other people that graduated from Johns Hopkins that I happen to work in an agency with. So, we kind of collaborate and refer to each other. The more people that you can find that are like-minded, not only in what you want to do for a living, but really in the why, as he was saying before, the why they're doing it, so that you can bounce ideas off of each other and get input. I think the better off.
Yeah, I think as far as marketing goes, it's really important to understand exactly who your customers are and where they live. If you do not have a consumer product, do not waste money on Facebook ads, right? You need to know where your customers are. If you know that the biggest thing for your customers is this one conference every year and it's $7,000 to go, maybe that's 90% of your marketing budget, because you may get the majority of your business from that one conference. If you know that your customers are really big on Twitter, then spend a lot of time there. But if not, don't hire a social media coordinator. And so part of it is just understanding where your customers live and directing your resources there. And some of it is some trial and error, and just really, you want to track everything very carefully. As new customers come in, how did they hear about you? And if 90% of your customers are telling you they heard about you the same way, then that's where 90% of your marketing dollars should be going.
I'd say 2 things. One, go small. There is something that you are doing in your business. There's something in your idea. There's something in the way that you look at things that is absolutely unique and priceless. And by focusing on the little thing, right? Not even little things, but the little thing, that one thing that you've got, you become the world's thought leader on that thing. And if you accept that leadership, people will follow you. Because there are other people out there who care about that thing. And more than anything else, part of the reason why it's so exciting to be starting a business now is because we used to live in a world where we thought that we had crazy ideas and we were alone. Now you find out that you have crazy ideas that are shared by lots of other people. And you have an opportunity to meet those people and bring them together. So go small. Think about that one thing.
What I'd like to do now, thank you all very much. What I'd like to do now is open a conversation up for questions. So what else would you like to know? What else is burning?
Can you talk more about the incubators?
Sure.
And like what kind of funding is, accessible, going through an incubator? Because as you were saying, if you're looking for investors, that's one source. If you're starting a nonprofit, that's a whole different. If if I'm looking to start a nonprofit, would I be, oh, thank you. Okay. Would that be, beneficial for me to utilize?
So as a nonprofit, you might be better off aligning with something like the Association of Baltimore Grant Makers. Their acronym is ABAG. But they have a lot of resources. Yeah, the nonprofit world is a little bit different, but I think it's just Maryland Nonprofits is sort of like the incubator equivalent for nonprofits, where they have trained professionals and people with years of experience who see lots of nonprofits and are able to come in and do training. And I'm on a nonprofit board, and we actually had a grant with Maryland Nonprofits where we had a person come in and help us do long-term planning over a series of weekends and help us make the board more sustainable and help us become more fiscally sustainable. So the nonprofit resources are a little bit different. I would say if you are starting a small business or a for-profit, the incubators can be really valuable because they provide a lot of resources in terms of classes and access to experts and professionals in your field. And they also just see so many companies coming and going through the program that they're really quick at being able to make connections of like, oh, you need to talk to this person, even if they're not in your industry, because they were facing this exact same challenge 5 years ago, and go talk to them about how they solved it. So by nature of the fact that they just see companies starting and growing all the time, they're able to very quickly figure out which resources are most effective and direct you towards them.
I think we had a couple people who were talking about starting a nonprofit, right? I've both been on the boards and I've been an executive director for a nonprofit. I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to look up as soon as you leave here. Number one, these are going to lean towards Baltimore City because that's my background. The Abell Foundation in Baltimore City gives grants to nonprofits and startup nonprofits. Annie E. Casey is sort of like maybe like the next level as you get a little bit more developed, but they have a lot of interesting programming. The Open Society Institute, they have different programs, both in terms of funding and also in terms of consulting and getting interns. Incomes for Outcomes, which is a social entrepreneurship benefit corporation, which helps connect nonprofits and socially minded private enterprises to money in the social impact investing space, of which there's a considerable amount of money. And if you're looking for a very successful program that works sort of with workforce development, education, social issues, that has a long-standing history and can give you lots of advice, contact Humanum. Their offices are located down on Gay Street in Baltimore. So those 5 If you're looking to start a nonprofit or a social enterprise, those 5 would be ones that you definitely want to start connecting with to get more information.
Yes, and
I would also add to that, there are 2 nonprofits that kind of act as incubators, especially if you're starting up and you don't have your 501c3 tax status. It's called Greater Homewood Community Corporation, and then also Fusion Partnerships. They can kind of act as your fiscal sponsor as you're developing your nonprofit.
Greater Homewood what? I'm sorry.
Greater Homewood Community Corporation and Fusion Partnerships.
Yeah, fiscal sponsorship is a really great option if you're just getting started as a nonprofit, because there's a lot of fiduciary responsibility that comes with starting a nonprofit, and they can help guide you through that. And it's also a long process to become official 501c3, and a lot of responsibility that comes with that. So having an organization that can kind of walk you into that slowly and with a lot of guidance is a great option.
And just, does that make your donations that you get tax deductible?
Yes, because
Okay, so
it
that's
goes
key.
through the fiscal sponsor as the 501c3 vehicle.
Other questions? Go ahead.
So I have a question, which is partly why I have been sort of stuck for a while, which is, as you talked about, like the start small thing, the why. So my why has resulted in me doing what you recommended not to do, which is to do it all for free. But in order to make money, and for what I'm going to do, it's very marketable, but it kind of takes me away from the why. So because what my company is basically focusing on college counseling, but from not just the college level, but even, like I do it from high school through the graduate level, and anything that comes along with that. So educational advocacy and academic advising as well. But I'm very comfortable just like doing it for people, for the population that I really want to help, which has no money. And so to make the shift to do it for people who have tons of money that I don't really think need my help, it's like a challenge for me in order to be able to continue to do it for that population that I want to help, because I don't want to just do it in a simple way, which is to just get clients that can afford it and then find people who I could do it for free. I think that's really simple, but it's not really what I want to do. Like, I want to do something that's much bigger for the population that really needs it, and I don't really know how to like marry those two. So if you guys have any suggestions.
I would tell you something I learned a long time ago, because I think anything in the realm of counseling, we get very stuck in the why, which is because there's a need, because people need this, and it doesn't matter if they don't have anything to pay me, and I would do this for free. But the thing is, you're valuable, and your time is valuable, and the more we undermine ourselves, the more we create by thought. So if we think that what we're doing is valuable, but it's okay if you don't pay me, then we start to undervalue ourselves. So I would tell you, for the people that can't afford it, I'm not telling you to go charge them $150 an hour, but I think anything worth having, I mean, if you think of anything you want, a service that you want, even if you don't have a lot of money, you're willing to pay something for it. So I would start out with saying, okay, well, when you're a service provider, it's hard to put a number. It's hard to say, well, what am I worth? What are my services worth? I'm not handing you a pen and saying, pay me $10. I'm giving of me, so what is that worth? And you have to sort of in your mind say, well, it's worth something. It's not worth nothing, right? It's worth something. Yeah. So even for the people that can't really afford it, to say, you know what, maybe they can't afford it, but they could afford $25, or they could afford $30. And if they can't, then maybe I'm not the person for them. And you have to start building it from there. And if your goal is to then get to the people who really can afford it, you sort of start to build on that of allowing yourself to feel your self-worth, of allowing yourself to realize that, yeah, I'm worth it. So then you work up to saying, okay, now I'm gonna, go for this demographic as well. And then once you have both, then it's a great balance. Because in what I'm doing now, there are some people that I charge less than others because I know how badly they need the services, but they can't afford my full fee. So, okay, now I'm willing to say I can do it for this because I know that I'm balancing it over here. And it's sort of building up to that.
The other thing you can do is think creatively about who the other stakeholders are in what you provide. So there's a corollary to this in education technology right now. There's a company called Clever, and what they do is they provide a service to a school that allows them to connect their rostering across all education programs that they use, but they charge the companies, not the schools. They charge the companies to be on their API that connects the services, and then they give it away to the schools for free. So are there other stakeholders in what you're doing? Maybe the schools benefit from having a higher college acceptance rate, right? So perhaps there's a way that maybe the school has some grant funding available, or maybe they have funds in their college readiness budget where the school could actually contract with you, and then you could provide the services to the students for free. So think creatively about who the other stakeholders are in the situation who may be more willing and able to pay for the services at the value that you provide.
That's a really good point. And what it's making me think of too, and I know a little bit about Sumayya's business, and I know what her outcomes have been. Whenever you can quantify, if you're saying these kids that I work with, 80% of them get into their top 3 schools, or they've been able to get scholarships totaling $150,000, that matters.
Yeah. So,
and sometimes in counseling that's harder to do, but thinking about what you want to do, if you can come up with a way to quantify what your benefit is, boy, does that help with funding. It certainly helps with your marketing. So, important piece. Other questions?
My question is specifically about partnering or marketing your business to a school district in general, because a lot of what we're talking about is helping students and helping families, and that's really beneficial for a school district to take advantage of, and that's an outcome I would like to see for my nonprofit when it's fully developed, is to have school districts be interested in my nonprofit to implement across the nation, honestly, not just within Baltimore City or Maryland. And I would like to know if any of you guys have done that and how you market it to the school districts, or how you may have been asked to partner with school districts, or what may be needed in order to do that.
Partnerships are key for companies, early stage companies working with school districts directly. School district sales, traditionally, whether you're talking about new companies in publishing, or new companies in education technology, or new companies providing services, that's been a graveyard. More companies have gone out of business, waiting for the procurement cycles, waiting to get their ducks in a row with all the red tape that you have to do to get into districts. They run out of money before they can make their first sale. So, meeting partners who are already working in districts and providing complementary services or complementary technologies around what they're doing is absolutely key to sort of starting the pipeline of getting in there. I'll give you an example. For us, a crucial partnership we made as a platform for professional development was in partnering with a Google Apps for Education provider who was already working in 30 districts and now is using our platform as the delivery device for what he's already doing. So it's complicated, but like threading that needle, partnerships is absolutely key, especially if you're working with districts.
you also have to understand the political levers in school districts in terms of who the real stakeholders are for what you're doing. So in our case, it's often principals, and you know the CFO and the CEO will say, well, we'll listen to what the principals say, and so that if you can get the principals to kind of advocate on your behalf and say, this is really amazing, we need this in our schools, then you start to get a more organic pathway to the leadership and the decision makers.
How do you brand your idea in such a way that it's not stolen?
Nobody's going to steal your idea. It's everyone's biggest fear starting a company, but I mean, as Shelley said before, no one is bringing what you are bringing to the idea in your head. You can tell someone, I'm going to do this, but their interpretation of what that means and how to execute it is going to be completely different. I mean, investors are infamous for saying ideas are worth nothing. It's all about execution. You could have the greatest idea in the world, but if you can't make it happen, it's worthless, right? Somebody else is going to go make it happen. Then they're the ones that did it. And that's what is valuable in the world. So don't worry about people stealing your ideas. Worry more about keeping your head down and getting it done, because that's what matters.
Can I just add something to that? Because there are so many small business ideas out there. Websites, start searching, smallbusiness.gov, SBA.gov, but there is still the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So there are trademark that are registered, copyrights and patents that are registered. Go to the website. It's, I looked this one up for you all. We did not need it as a consulting practice because we have proprietary information right now, but www.uspto.gov. And look and see what kinds of things have been registered there. And in addition, we didn't talk about anything formal as far as the business plan. You can go online and you can find templates for business plans, etc. But when you come up with the name of your business, which is what you have to start, I mean, before you can even open up a bank account for your business, you've got to come up with a name and a trading as, and depending what kind of business, federal ID numbers and those sorts of things. You also have the responsibility to search and make sure that nobody has that business name yet. Similarities are okay if you're in two distinct parts geographically. That's one thing, but you want to make sure that your product, it's your idea, creative. You want to stand alone there. One of the other things to think about, and I didn't realize this years ago, but if you start a business in a company, you don't necessarily want to have it begin with the letter Z. Because when people are searching for things, where do they start? Where do all the search, we're talking alphabet starts with A, right? So just keep these things in mind. Start looking and seeing what, not necessarily your competitors, but what have these other people done? What kind of marketing? Oh, would that appeal to my clients? Excellent. Okay, I can look on more. I can put a press release in a community newsletter. I can get into the school bulletin, etc. Anyway, I would just caution people about that patent and trademark, because it gets really technical, and and get some professional support, because generally speaking, the people who have small businesses, they are excellent at certain things, and there are other things that they are not so excellent at. That's okay. Partner with other people, whether they be family members, neighbors, people that you can work with when the chips are down, and get professional advice as far as legally, accounting wise.
What we'd like to do now, thanks for all your questions. What I'd like to do, we're going to actually break for a few minutes to grab something to eat, and then each of our panelists will be sitting at tables, and you can ask them some specific questions. Before we do that, I just want to make a couple comments about some of the many, many key points that came across. And I also want to add with a blog post that Shelley published a few weeks ago. So, Jess, what was so interesting, you talked about looking at your Starbucks purchases on Mint. which in some ways that was really the genesis of your business, right? I mean, it's a really great, so what's out there is going to generate great ideas. So be open, always be thinking about how your business might be similar, related, connected to, or even be a springboard. No idea is too small. Some of the greatest businesses are have the most simple ideas. Our passion often comes out of our experience, good or bad. Don't forget that piece. Networking in so many levels, whether it's using technology, but really face-to-face talking with people. People want to know what you have to say. They want to share that. They want to be a part of what you're doing. Those themes, it all comes back to teaching, you know. Not doing everything by yourself related to networking. Listening to the voice that tells you, I can do that better, which I think is related to what you were saying. Do a needs assessment, so what's needed out there. Do a skills assessment. What can I do? What skills do I have that will allow me to do that? Shelley suggested beginning with the end. Be financially prepared as possible. Figure out your marketable skills. Know your why. You know, why, and drill that down to something very simple. I have 3 kids. It gets so big. Understand your market and where your customers are. Okay? So, what's the first thing you do when you find out you're going to meet some people? You Google them. So I went online and found Shelley's blog in Estuary, and a couple weeks ago I put out a list of aphorisms with a nod to Brian Eno and Peter Schmidt, who in '75 created a deck of cards called Oblique Strategies. And it's a list of aphorisms that were intended to help artists really overcome their creative blocks. So these are some of Shelley's aphorisms. Begin with the outcomes. You will forget what is important. Everyone does this. Your better judgment will impede the truth. Okay? Tell everyone how to do your secret thing, which is very interesting, and we're going to have a whole conversation about that. If given the chance, fake it and see if anyone notices. If they don't notice, you have more work to do. Throw away your early successes. The moment when change happens, trumps change itself. The moment when change happens, trumps change itself. So allow your mind to be scared. So there, at some point, you have to do it because you have that message that no one else can really affect. This goes into the dagger. This is a dagger that goes into the heart of counselors. Choose one thing out of the self-help manual and do exactly the opposite. Let everyone see your mistakes, so getting past that fear. Every step is a first step. Every step is also a last step. You're going to find out the truth, like it or not. And last, whatever you're doing right now, do it a little more. Now stop. So with that, thank you so much. I mean, this was just such an exciting conversation and incredibly inspiring and hopeful and optimistic and hopefully a reminder to all of you that you have that secret sauce. You have that message, you have that story, you have that skill that no one else can do. So you have an obligation to share with the world. So I welcome you to do that. And again, thank you. And we'll grab something to eat and continue on. Jen, do you want to say anything about that?
Really, thank you all. I would just ask that we let the panelists get through first so they can get their seats, and then everyone can help themselves and continue this amazing conversation and be able to take in your wonderful experiences a little bit more. So thank you again for spending the morning. Wonderful. And thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, for moderating.
Real quick while I'm up here, can I get one photo? Real quick.